All right, guys, we made it. Welcome in. I am your host of the Big Law Capitalist, Jeremy Toms. I'm really happy to have you guys. I have so much planned for this podcast, for these episodes that are upcoming. This first episode, I think, is chock full of value. We'll talk about some goofy stuff. We'll talk about some actual really good tips and strategies for real estate investing. We'll talk about a bunch of stuff. But what you can expect from our podcast is genuine value, right? You're probably an attorney if you're listening to this, Big Law Capitalist. If you're not an attorney and you're listening to it, love you too. I appreciate you joining in with us. But for this show, the point is highly paid professionals who lack time. That is like the definition of an attorney, basically. And when you lack that time, you think you don't have really the opportunity to go and invest, right? Make your money work for you. Well, that's what I'm here for. I want to make sure that you know the strategies, you know really how easy it can be to add to your portfolio, to add to your investment strategy without taking away from your W-2 job, right? That's what I've been able to do. That's what other people who I've coached and helped out on with investments, that's what they've been able to do. And so I'm excited to be able to bring that to you. So allow me to introduce our first guest. He is one of my closest friends. He's also the co-founder of a company that I actually own as well, which is NuHomes Capital Management. He's a great guy. He does a lot of really cool stuff. One of the things he does the best is some construction stuff, a lot of investing. He's well-versed in real estate. And I think it makes sense to for him to be the first guest, because outside of the fact that, he's really good at investing and he has a lot in his portfolio and he's done a lot of stuff, he's also the person I talk to the most outside of my wife. And so at least this first episode won't be super awkward, right? We'll be able to dive in and we can just do some goofy stuff, crazy stuff, and kind of get crazy with it, because it's our first episode. But I'm super happy to have you guys in. So join us for this journey. This is going to be the first of many. I think we'll add a ton of value. And if you ever have any questions after you listen to an episode and you're like, hey, what was that? Give me more on that. I want to talk to you guys, right? So if that's the case, hit us up. Go to our Instagram at the Big Law Capitalist. Reach out to us on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me, Jeremy Toms, on LinkedIn, Tomes. It's a weird spelling. I'll never be able to tell you why it's spelled that way, but it is. All right, guys, I want to dive into the episode. I want to introduce you to Matt Graves. He's the co-founder of NuHomes. He's done a lot of really cool stuff. He has some really cool strategies that I think will be really helpful for you. So without further ado, let's jump to it. Matt, how's it going, man? Welcome in.
Going well, man. Excited to be the first guest on the podcast. Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate it, man. We're going to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
One way or another, we're going to make it happen.
Definitely.
So I appreciate you jumping on, man. We chat literally every day. Our families are super tight. So I thought it made sense for you to jump on first, kind of, help me kick this thing off, get it off on the right start. I think one of the reasons that I even became friends with you is because your insight and abilities in real estate are second to none. So I think a lot of people will get a lot of value from you. Before we get any further though, let's introduce you, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So as you mentioned, I'm a co-founder of NuHomes. We started that, a little over 3 years ago now. And
wow, yeah.
Yes.
It has been a long time.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's flown by, but so we're full-fledged on that right now. I'm also a realtor part-time as well. And just living here in Charlotte, currently doing
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, currently doing a little bit of a house hack, but we can get into that a little bit later on. But
absolutely, we will.
But yeah, met you here in Charlotte, and we kicked it off, like I said, about 3 years ago, and been going strong ever since. So
yeah, dude, right? We met 5 years ago, back 2017 at in South End at Brass Tap.
Yeah,
just two guys trying to find their way in the world.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk it?
No, we definitely had a good connection. Both of our wives are in the medical field, actually physician assistants. I felt like we both kind of knew that, we could complement one another really well. Our strengths and weaknesses mirrored each other very well. So
yeah, it was strange. I was so when we met, I was probably a year into investing. You were, I think, a year or two into investing back and we can kind of dive into that a little bit. But like, it was the most opportunistic sort of meeting, right? Like, I had no idea who you were. You had no idea who I was. I was late to the meeting. I had no reason to actually get any value out of that meeting. I should have been like, it should be like, no, man, there's the door. Like, you're late. But I went in, sat down next to you, and like the rest was history, man. But before that ever happened, right? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I originally grew up in Illinois, just a little town about an hour south of Chicago called Momence, and it's about 3,500 people. And yeah, grew up there and went to college, got a degree, and got out into the workforce, like kind of we're kind of taught to do, and got out there and I actually got a degree in law enforcement and immediately
Came in handy, right?
yeah immediately picked up a job as a private investigator right out of college. They had an opening actually in Colorado, and I jumped at that opportunity to move out there. So
Yeah, which is fantastic. That like top three cities for me, like San Francisco one, Denver, Colorado is like a strong second. Like it pushes towards the first, but
yeah,
like outside of just the winters being the winters,
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no, like fantastic area. So when you're out there, I think you met your wife out there, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'd lived out there for several years. Ended up meeting my wife, and I was, like I said, at that time I was a private investigator. Got super comfortable in the job. Just you,
Which was a like that's a job in and of itself. Like the story of you being a private investigator, which is one of the wildest jobs that I've ever like heard stories about. But you have one in particular that I always find like really hilarious. So like you used to track former or retired NFL players, right?
yeah. I mean, so it was. I mean, it was a culmination of a lot of different people, but one of our the insurance companies that we work for. So we mainly did workman's comp and liability stuff, and so the
Mm-hmm.
insurance companies we worked for and were contracted by, we did a lot of work on ex NFL players that were getting paid for injuries that they were supposedly or did have throughout their career, and we're still getting paid for them. So
Gotcha. Yeah, which is like wild, but
yeah, it was
that's a job. Yeah.
yeah, and just a brief history on that. I mean, I was basically following around people in a blacked out minivan, super creeper style. Basically, I was looking for video evidence of them, like the classic, just like using crutches coming out of your physical therapy, and then you're out like going to the gym or golfing or skiing down the mountains out in Colorado. That happened a lot. I got to follow people down the mountains and stuff. That was super cool. But
That's wild. Yeah.
yeah, no, the football players, it was insane. I mean, I was following, Porsches going down the highway at 90 mile an hour with my minivan. So uh,
Goodness
it got
gracious.
interesting. So, but yeah, anyways, like I said, I got super comfortable in that job. Kind of reached my potential in that job. They offered me a promotion, but it was basically a lateral move. More hours, same pay. So, at that point,
Is it accurate to say like during that entire period that you're out in Colorado, you met your wife, you're working that job, that you had the real estate bug early, right? Like you've always been super entrepreneurial, but that real estate bug bit you pretty early on.
yeah, and as much as I would have loved to dive into the real estate out in there and in Colorado at that
Yeah.
time, so I was right around when weed became legalized out there. So
Hmm.
it's when a lot of cash got going in the real estate market. But
Yeah.
that's another story. But so, anyways, but yeah, no, I definitely got the bug, and I had expressed that to my wife. My wife ended up actually encouraging me to kind of follow that dream. And like I said, she's a physician assistant. She makes pretty good money, so I was able to kind of make that leap into that dream that I had, and she was able to support us throughout the process. But to kind of help facilitate that, we ended up moving back to Illinois to kind of live in
Back to moments.
back to Moments,
Yeah.
to live in my parents' river rental house, and ended up moving back there. And I basically wanted to learn from my dad. He's, like I said, he's of that generation, just knows how to do everything,
Yeah.
take apart an
Like jack of all trades, but like also a master at a few as well. Yeah.
yeah, take apart engines, build houses, just anything and
Oh, real quick before we gloss over it, shout out to your wife for actually like for you convincing her to move from Denver, Colorado back to Moments, Illinois. That's love, man. You gotta
She was a trooper.
shout out to you.
Yeah, she was a trooper. Yeah, she knew she was not a big fan of small towns, and but yeah, she gave it. She gave me 2 years back home. We would kind of move back there. Like I said, save up money, living in my parents' rental house. I got a job actually as a. I got out of like I said, I got out of private investigating. Ended up just getting a job in the union. I was actually a heavy machinery operator
Oh yeah.
in a mine, actually, like a rock quarry. Says like a Fred Flintstone breaking rocks, down there, and it was able to. It was a neat experience and everything, but that just, I mean, it was allowed me to kind of make an income while I was also the point of moving back, which was basically to learn from my father about how to do all the stuff that I know how to do nowadays, which is essentially
Yeah.
um, you know uh, build a house, so yeah.
Right. So let's dive into that because that's what's really cool, and for the audience's point, sort of edification. This is really the reason I wanted Matt to be on the first episode, because I think a lot of people get bogged down in the idea of real estate investing, right? Like, and this is really with any investment, right? They get bogged down in like hey, I don't have time for this part of it, which is, especially from, I can speak from experience from an attorney's perspective, can be like the reason you don't do certain things, right? Like you're slam busy, you have family obligations, right? Like you have all this stuff going on. So I think a lot of people, they sort of hesitate to even dive into it because they think I don't have time for this. But the strategies you started out using that I mean, you're still incorporating today, which we'll get into, make it so that you can do them and still just live, right? Like it becomes just sort of a part of your life, but it's also creating a massive amount of wealth. So let's dive into that. So when you moved back to Moments, you're working with your dad and you flipped a house, right? That was step sort of one into the real estate foray. Let's dive into that. Let's talk about the house. How much did you buy it for? What was the business plan there?
So yeah, we ended up, we wanted to flip a house. We needed the funds to do so. I actually recommended through reading real estate books, listening to podcasts and stuff. I actually recommended that we go ahead and take a home equity line of credit out on the rental house that we were actually living in. They had owned that outright for quite some time, and
Right.
so we ended up getting a loan on that. And that was, $45,000 loan. We ended up going out purchasing a house for $25,000. This is not Colorado, by the way. So
So those numbers like just sound made up.
we
Yeah.
bought a like a 1927 house for $25,000, and over the course of the next year, we worked on nights and weekends after working 50, 60 hours a week. Driving over 20, 30 minutes to the actual town that we were flipping it in, working, going home, rinse and repeat. So basically spending all of our weekends doing that as well. So to make a long story short, we like I said, we did that over the course of a year. I literally took this house down the studs, completely rebuilt it, and we ended up selling it for $85,000 after putting about $20,000 into it. So yeah, we made a little decent profit over that. Now, if you actually count the hourly time that we were doing, the actual hours that we put it into it over a year, it was probably terrible, but it was a good learning experience. So
Well, and too, right? That's a thing in and of itself. You not only did you profit from it, but it wasn't just tangible, like dollar profit, right? It was like the educational sort, if you will, educational profit. That you've been able to sort of you've taken that and turned it into like a mini empire now, right? Which is pretty wild. And I think that's sort of like the American dream. It's why so many people love the idea of real estate, because you can sort of multiply your the valuation, right? You can multiply your balance sheet, with real estate. You can really build massive wealth pretty quickly. And so that's a good segue that it dives into sort of what I wanted to talk about in this episode, which is the idea of the live in, flip, and also the idea of house hacking. Um, so from there, from moments, right, you moved, was it immediately down to Charlotte? Is that right?
Yeah, my wife got a position here in Charlotte, and we ended up moving out here. Her family lives close by, and so yeah, made the move out here. At that time, it was super, low cost of living, easy entry into the market. But we moved out here, and we immediately got into rental. Wanted to feel out the market, feel out the neighborhoods where we wanted to be, and everything in our first house. And at that time, I also got my realtor's license. I thought, why not, learn the market, also get paid for while
Yeah.
I'm, purchasing and selling houses. So, yeah,
Yep.
learn how to do comp.
Which
There's some
makes total
benefits
sense.
to the position of being a realtor throughout that process. It's for some people, it's not for some, some other people, but I felt like it's very much helped me throughout the career that I've built so far. So.
And so when you guys moved down here, was the plan from the beginning like I want to do a live in flip, right? And I can dive into the definition of that, but like was that the plan from the beginning?
Yeah, it was. We wanted to find some. I mean, it's hard for me. It's very hard for me to find, to actually buy something like a piece of real estate that doesn't have some type of value add.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
that was definitely the goal. And like I said, we started looking for houses and found a neighborhood that we really liked after missing out on several houses. That I mean, the Charlotte market continued to get hot and hotter than what it is currently, which is insane.
Yeah.
But we were putting $25,000 over asking on properties with no inspections and everything, and we were missing out on it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we ended up finally getting into a house and bought it for 265, and it was been a rental for like 14 years, and but yeah, we saw the value in the neighborhood, and we saw what the house needed. It was a little bit more than a cosmetic flip, I would say, and so yeah, we ended up putting about 40 to $50,000 into that one, and after we stayed there for 2 years, we ended up selling for 527.5. So
Good
yeah,
Lord.
it was a good come up. So
Wow. Yeah. Right. Like that is the level up of the century.
yeah.
That's fantastic, man. And so what's even better about that, and I think when you dove into the live and flip, and let's go ahead and like kind of give a working definition, right, of what that is. One of the benefits I think you wanted the most, right, was like the fact that you're not only are you flipping it, you're living there. So like when you got into it, what would you say like were the top three reasons that you wanted to do a live and flip?
So number one, I mean, was honestly just like, I mean, low cash down on your actual loan.
Mm,
We were able to get a conventional loan, do 3.5% down when normally for investment properties, you're putting 20 to 25% down, like stuff we do nowadays. I mean, it's to be able to get away with 3.5% down. I mean, it's always about, trying to put as little money in it of your own as possible. Um,
yeah, it's like a cheat code.
yeah,
That's
so
fantastic.
that was number one reason. Second was just, I mean, the ease of entry into real estate investing in general. It's
Yep.
a really easy way to kind of use your own house as an asset, and utilize that. Especially, I mean, the things that I know that I learned from my dad, I was able to do that and kind of you know add that value to the house throughout the process. And the
Right.
third was, I mean, honestly, just living in it in general. We knew that we were going to eventually move away from that house, but staying in it for that 2 years to be able to hit that, no capital gains tax. So basically, not a CPA at all, but you get out of paying capital gains if you live in your personal house for 2 out of 5 year period, and you essentially don't have to pay capital gains on your profits on your. So that was
Which is
yeah.
like that man. So like so I talk to a lot of people, a lot of highly paid professionals who are looking to get into investments, right? Like a lot of times I'm talking to them because they're investing, with with our firm, right? With our private equity firm, NuHomes Capital Management. And so like the conversation I have, a lot of times people don't think about the truly think about the tax piece of it. It's more, like, oh, how much am I gonna make? And I'm like, dude, your returns don't just matter for like overall return numbers, right? Like if you get 20% on an investment opportunity, that's your return. That's fantastic. But like, let's add in the tax piece, right? Like that's when you kind of have to start really doing the math. And so what you just said makes all the sense in the world. It's what I tell people, which is like, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. And so you made over $200,000 and got to keep all of it as profit, tax free.
Yeah.
That is the definition of a cheat code. When I say cheat code, people, what I'm talking about is like, remember back in the day when you played like, Sega or like PlayStation, which was my game of choice. Like just the XY, like over left, like that whole thing, like that's the cheat code. Like you figured out literally how to keep all of your profit. And then not only that, but then grow that further. It's all about making your money work for you. And so that I commend you, man. That is absolutely fantastic. You are my hero. Like when we met at Brass Tap all those years ago, like the moment you like even mentioned the strategy, which at the time I had no idea like this was actually really a thing people did, I was blown away. And I know a lot of people will be when they hear that. Like over $200,000 tax free. Bananas. That's incredible. And so what would you say, like if somebody's thinking about doing that, right? They're like, all right, that sounds amazing. I want to do that. What sort of guidance would you give them? What would you more so, I guess, what would you tell them not to do? Or what would you tell them to look out for?
So, I think I would tell them, number one, run it past your significant other, because it is, I mean, it's not exactly comfortable. Like, when you're living in flip, I mean, we didn't really get into that, but I mean, we were living and flipping this thing. We were renovating it as we were living in it. I mean, there was a short time period where we were doing our dishes in the bathtub upstairs. We had like a makeshift kitchen in like the fourth bedroom upstairs. I mean, it was, it's not exactly a comfortable process, but I mean, to me, be able to kind of, get on that scale of comfortability versus profitability.
Oh, I'm going to use that comfortability versus profitability.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I'm going to make a shirt out of
I had
that.
heard that somewhere, and it really resonated with me. I think if you're able to kind of put up with some stuff like that, put yourself in an uncomfortable position, you're more likely to grow and also be profitable in those situations. I think it's the same in business in general. I mean, who knew we're going to be doing what we're doing nowadays when we first started.
Right.
So it's we've definitely pushed ourselves and gotten in uncomfortable scenarios, and we really shine through that process. So
Yeah, no, totally, dude. I think that's right. Like, because I can tell you, so learning from you, right? Like when me and my family we moved up to Pittsburgh, and I was like, all right, like we're gonna have a little stopover house while we're here, and then we'll build our next house after that. So I pitched it to my wife. I was like, hey, like why don't we go ahead and buy a little house? We can throw some sweat equity into it, make a couple $100,000, and walk away. And she's like, yeah, no. Like, no, we're not doing that.
that's that.
I was like, but
Yeah.
why not? And she's like, I'm not raising a newborn kid in like utter chaos. And I was like, all right, fair enough, good point.
Yeah.
So again, good on your wife. Shout out to your wife. I mean, that is you picked a good one, because it's a tough sell, right? But like at the end of the day, when you made that sale, everybody's happier because you just leveled up your wealth substantially and tax free. So good on you, man. And so what I love about you is that you're kind of like me in the sense that opportunity is always on your mind, right? Like you're always looking for the next step up. And so tell us a little bit, what'd you do when you sold that? What was the plan then? Because I feel like there's always a plan in the works.
So obviously we're looking for another value add situation, and we were looking for another live in flip, or if the opportunity arose. I mean, we're always interested in duplex, triplex, quadplex,
Yeah.
and so luckily throughout us selling, we end up finding a duplex come for sale, in a really highly sought after neighborhood in Charlotte, Dilworth. Actually, it backs up to Freedom Park, which is just a fantastic park. It's walkable to restaurants and shops and boutiques and bars. So it's a phenomenal location. Never thought I could actually be in this area, but like I said, we saw this duplex come on, and I instantly thought that we could house hack it. And basically,
Oh, hard pause. House hack. Quick definition. What do you mean by that?
So to me, I mean, house hacking is essentially, utilizing your personal residence and to be able to profit from it. And basically renting it. It's basically renting out anywhere from renting out a room in your house to having a quadplex and, renting out 3 units and living in the other. So.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like I said, we saw this one come on. We purchased it for $650. And we had the thought of basically, renovating. Basically, it was a gut job on both sides. So we renovated one side we're currently living in right now. This is actually the other side that'll be the side that we'll actually live in. But the other side will actually rent out on Airbnb. That when we actually move into this side and start renting that side out, that will cover our entire mortgage and some. And so we'll be essentially living free and actually being paid to live here in one of the most sought after neighborhoods in Charlotte. And it's just great schools, great location. It's a dream. So,
dude, that's the power of real estate. Oh, I'm so proud of you. That's fantastic, dude. That's awesome, man. And I like, having sort of watched the growth from the beginning, right? I want to dive into a little bit of like how you've been able to, because essentially this is what you've done. You took, one experience on one flip 5 or so, maybe 7 or so years ago. And you've now, and I'll tell people because I know you won't, but you've leveled that up. So like the NuHomes portfolio now, we're sitting on, over 80 plus properties within the portfolio. We're building 21, is it 21 now? 21 houses, new construction houses. At the moment, we've flipped countless homes. We're under contract to build 6 new luxury townhome development, 6 new luxury townhomes in a development up by Lake Norman. Just crazy stuff. And literally, it all started from sort of just looking for opportunity, right? Like none of this stuff is really like rocket science, but it's all about mindset. And I've always enjoyed your mindset, but I feel like it matches up with mine, to a T, which I think is why we're such a good team. But dude, what you've been able to pull off and are actively pulling off, hats off to you. Yeah. Tip of the cap, man, because you've done a hell of a job. So before we go, man, I want to make sure that people can find you, right? So real quick, plug your stuff, right? Where can people find you? Instagram, whatever else. Feel free to dive in.
So my Instagram handle is at MDG106, and
oh, that's original.
If you actually, that's mostly some of my family stuff and some of our house hack stuff, some of the process of the construction and whatnot. If you actually want to follow our NuHomes stuff, you could jump on and follow us at NuHomes.cm. So NuHomes is NuHomes. So
nice. Let me just first off finish off by saying thank you 1,000 times, man. Thank you for joining the pod. I know how busy you are. I know you have 2 kids. I have 2 kids. I know it's chaos. It's a Saturday for people out there. It's a Saturday at 9:00 at night. And Matt, you made a lot of time for us, man. So I really appreciate that. If people want to reach out, feel free to reach out to us on, shoot us a DM on Instagram, again, at Big Law Capitalist. Had a hell of a time, man. Thanks so much, Matt. We'll catch you next time.
Great. Yeah.
All right, man. All right, we did it. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. I really, really do appreciate it. Do me a big favor. If you want to be a part of the Big Law Capitalist community to stay up to date with all of our latest episodes, you gotta hit that subscribe button. Super important. But I can't thank you enough for joining me this week. I'll see you next time. Peace.